Well, after seeing this, I'm looking forward to the sequel. Operation Dessert. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about a newer Netflix release, Operation Mincemeat. Before we begin, let me know in the comments what your thoughts on this movie were, if you already saw it, or if you were planning on seeing it, and make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you like these reviews, as it helps me out immensely by getting my content out there. And if you're new here, I hope you consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with more movie-related content like Netflix reviews on a near-daily basis. But let's not waste any more time and let's talk about Operation Mincemeat. This takes place during World War II, where two intelligence officers use a corpse and false papers to outwit German troops. This is directed by John Madden, and it just hit Netflix in the US, though it did receive a theatrical release in the UK in April. And it's a war drama mixed with a spy thriller, mixed with Weekend at Bernie's, which, yes, I know is an odd comparison to make, but given the fact a big part of this plan involves falsifying the identity of a corpse, I just couldn't help but think of that, and I'm sure you'll get some of the same vibes when watching this too. Probably the most noteworthy moment where I admit I just had to chuckle involved our main characters trying to take a picture of this corpse, and they try sprucing him up to make him appear alive, which goes just as well as you'd expect. But it should be worth noting that this is all actually based on a true story, with the real Operation Mincemeat being a crucial mission during the war, though admittedly one that I'm not quite all that familiar with. Now, I wasn't sure what kind of tone this ultimately was going to go for, given the title of the film and how little I knew about the actual mission, and more on that tone in a minute. But despite there being this clear air of ridiculousness to this whole plan, with there being a dash of dry humor thrown in there at times, such as the moment I mentioned earlier, it's generally played pretty straight-faced. Colin Firth and Matthew Macfadyen play the two officers who lead the mission, and they're both quite good here, with the calm, cool, collected Firth gracing us with his usual sincerity that makes him an endearing protagonist. He's one of those actors who always manages to turn in a sympathetic, likable performance, even when the rest of the movie's not quite as good, and you once again get another reliable performance from him here. And there's also a love triangle involving Firth and Macfadyen, along with a secretary played by Kelly MacDonald, that also takes up part of the film. Macfadyen's infatuated with MacDonald, who clearly has feelings for Firth and vice versa, and, as I'm sure you can guess, the tensions between Firth and Macfadyen over MacDonald's affections begin to build, and they coincide with the mission as the stakes increase. And all three are joined by a number of familiar faces in the supporting cast who play a critical piece to this puzzle. Most notably, Johnny Flynn as Ian Fleming, and yes, James Bond Ian Fleming, who actually based his Bond novels on his time as a British intelligence officer, along with the always great Jason Isaacs as John Godfrey, an officer of the Royal Navy. And of all the supporting performances, I'd say Isaacs is another major standout, with such a booming confidence that commands each and every scene he's in, that you hold on to each and every word of his. Anytime he was on screen, those were some of my favorite moments, and he gave easily one of my favorite performances in the film, alongside Firth. The film is also shot incredibly well, and you feel totally immersed in this time period thanks to some slick direction by Madden, who's no stranger to period pieces, as this is the same guy who brought us Shakespeare in Love. And combined with the performances and just how unique this story is, it did keep me engaged, as, given my lack of knowledge on the subject, I just had to know how something like this all shook out. However, I will admit the film didn't consistently hook me in, as it did suffer from some pacing issues at times. For one thing, I don't think the romance subplot worked all that well, as each of those scenes felt the clunkiest in terms of dialogue, and they'd sometimes bring the movie down to a grinding halt, especially as the romance didn't add anything to the story of this mission. MacDonald still has an active role in the mission, playing the fake fiancé of this corpse, as wild as that is to say, and given she still plays a part all throughout this, I think you could have still had a compelling arc for her otherwise, even if the romance was completely cut out. Also, from a tonal perspective, while I understand this is all a true story and you want to capture the gravity of the situation, but given how bizarre this scenario is and how the film will occasionally acknowledge it as such, it would have been nice to see it lean into that a little more and heighten things a bit there. I know that runs the risk of the film being in poor taste and coming off as a little cartoonish, but I still think it could have accomplished that without diminishing the severity of this mission. Because another thing that brings this movie down for me is that we'll get a lot of dialogue and exposition heavy scenes, and they're presented as a little dry. It's just these dense conversation heavy moments that do a lot of name dropping but aren't presented in a way that I'd exactly call memorable. Now, the cast all do what they can, and they certainly elevate the material to a degree, but I would have liked to have seen the writing match that. Now, granted, I'm personally not a die-hard fan of the political spy thriller genre, which typically does rely a lot on these dense, exposition-heavy sequences, so that might just be my own personal preference talking. So, if you're into these films to begin with, it might not be that big of a deal for you. Overall for me, Operation Mincemeat is just fine. Given how ridiculous the actual events in which this is based on were, I think the film could have leaned into that just a bit more, as it would go stretches between its unnecessary romance subplot to give us these very dry, exposition-heavy sequences that would cause the film to lose a little momentum. Despite all that, it's still ultimately an intriguing story overall, and it's well acted all around, with some great performances, especially by Colin Firth and Jason Isaacs. While I didn't love the film, it's definitely well made, and if you're into political spy thrillers or war dramas, you may enjoy this. Operation Mincemeat gets a 6.5 out of 10. So let me know, did you see Operation Mincemeat, or are you planning to see it, and what are your thoughts? Is this one of your new favorite spy thrillers? Is it one of your new favorite Colin Firth movies? Let me know in the comments below so we can discuss. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching everyone, and keep having fun with film.